We are the Outlaws and Scholars podcast. When two seemingly contrasting worlds collide, the world of outlaws and the world of scholars, there's something appealing about the rebel. The rebel is dangerous.
Squat down like the little bitch you are and talk shit. If you want to talk shit, stand up like a man, motherfucker, and talk shit.
But you feel safe in his presence. And the intellectual, it's also appealing. May seem harmless from the outset, but when you hear him speak, you get a glimpse of just how formidable that man is.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom.
Neither one is someone that you want to fuck with. It's time to question everything that you believe. Here is the starting point to the journey of finding your answers. Enjoy the show.
Every leader gets torn apart, right? And you get torn apart by the very people you try to help. Right? And it's like when you look at somebody in the streets, they could be goddamn a murderer, a killer, they get praised for murdering somebody.
That's
and you get torn apart for trying to help people.
I want to segue into something that I've been wanting to talk to you about on something you just said. The murderer in the street will get praised, right?
Yeah.
People respect violence. Why? Why do we have a culture of no snitching? So basically, if a person kills somebody, and let's say you know about it, you are obligated in our culture to not say anything, even though that person's existence makes your situation unsafe. It makes your community unsafe. Why have we adopted that no snitching rule?
I think it started off as something honorable, right? It started off as a code, an oath, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? As they say, it's no honor amongst thieves, but that was kind of trying to put honor amongst thieves, right? If you take the El Murder code, right, from like the mafia, right, they have a code of no snitching, right? They have a code of vengeance. They have a code of like family order and construct, right? There was just a list that was put out of like the top richest families in the world. Those families have codes if you want to stay in that circle of wealth, right? Communities have structure, order, and code.
Right.
So when it comes to the underground elements of the street, and especially if you're talking about rebel against the system, then part of that is nobody talks to the system. Otherwise, we know that you're a part of the system. So we're saying we're going to operate outside that system.
Right.
So the code is nobody can tell on each other, right? Because the honor of it is if I'm going to do something outside that system and anybody that's doing that with me, then nobody can tell on anybody. So that makes people feel more comfortable and safe with going against a system, whether it's criminality or whether it's revolution, right? And so I believe all of those codes started off honorable, and then different elements as the degradation of the honor of the movements in the street started to take place. Like if you take Crips and Bloods, they started as movements of community protection, and then they became movements of community cannibalism. And so now that code don't make sense in the sense of having honor towards it, because what is upholding is no longer something that can be justified to be honorable in the first place. Right? So I think that where we exist at right now, at the same time, it's like if me and you make a pact to say, yo, we gonna rob this bank, but listen, you know, we get caught, nobody snitch, we do the time, right? But then we both get caught and then you tell, right? So it's like, wait a minute, the honorable thing, we both took that charge, or we take a strategy to say, and that's the thing, is like, only the person in the crime can absolve you of wrongdoing in that situation. You be like, nah, bro, I'm gonna take it so you can be out there and take care of my family. I need somebody on the street still. That's a different conversation. What's happening today is, you have everybody taking on the persona of the streets, but none of the code of the streets, right? So now the jails are being filled up because a lot of young men are being tricked because old time codes, right? But these are new time, you know what I mean, street cats that ain't really real.
Everyone's not playing the game properly.
Yeah, so the streets is dead.
So let's add some nuance to that. Let's say you and I agree to go out and rob a bank, right? We ain't snitching. We just going in there to rob a bank. No snitching. Let's say
it's a big bank. Like how much we get?
Big bank.
Like,
but let's say during the heist.
100K?
Huh?
100K?
Nah, it's not
200.
We get some millions.
We get millions. Okay. All right. Just want to set precedents.
You gotta get the millions, baby. We gotta make it worth it. We gotta sit still. It's gonna be worth it. You feel me? So let's say the heist, something goes off and I shoot somebody and kill somebody, right? Are you going to uphold that? What happens? Does the rules change? Because now the stakes is higher.
I think that's a conversation that has to be had as well, because it's like, it's terms and agreement. So a code is a contract, right? So it's saying that, all right, listen, these are like, if you are in anything, right, whether it's criminal, whether it's not criminal, you should have these conversations. This happens in business relationships, right? All the time. That, you know, that's risk adverse, saying that, all right, listen, if we go in there, we're not catching nobodies. That adds a completely different element, different charges, different game. So if two people agree to say we're just going to do it, it's nonviolent. Same way if somebody sneaks a gun in, a real gun, say y'all want to use toy guns or something, or we're not using live ammo. Somebody does use live ammo. And we say, well, in that situation, listen, I'm only agreeing to going in there and robbing. Now, you put the other person in a situation they didn't agree to. Right? The problem with the street code is it takes a general code and then it washes and it paints it over every aspect of the crime. Right? Case in point, what happened with T.I., right? They and recently they said he came out and denied that it actually happened, but they say he told on somebody who was dead to get out of a case. Okay. Right? Now, I've never heard of the jurisdiction of the code applying to this, but because there's never been a scenario in history that I've known of.
That's the precedent.
Right, that's the precedent. So it's like in law, when you have a case that sets a new precedent, all the other cases follow that, right? So, you know, it's in the streets, people don't really follow that template though. You know what I mean? You kind of generally wash it over everything, even new precedences that haven't been set. Right. So it's like the average person would use a logic in that situation and say, would I really sit down 30, 40 years for a code, right? Or would I be free and have people mad at me? Yeah. Right? And so the streets, the philosophy of the streets, the grand strategy, the idea that it's all dead because it's been dismantled. Those men who of the 20s and the 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it's not the same men in the 90s and 2000s and going above in this era. So you're taking old codes from old eras and you're trying to apply them to a new era and they don't even fit because these are new men and new women. It's not the same. So I believe, number one, and this goes into it deeper, it's like, what's people not really applying to the streets is how artificial intelligence is going to change crime, right? Precog crime and just going back over and imagine AI as your investigator, right? That's right. Like you should, like crime does not pay, not anymore.
Listen, Amir and I were just talking about this morning about just people we know from the past who still getting after or trying to get after it. Barely making the money. Right. But I'm like, it makes no sense.
They find some sense of like honor and they find a sense of identity in it.
There's so many ways to make money legally. To not have that stress over you.
I talked about it on Drink Champs. You can be a TikToker and make more money than a drug dealer.
That's a fact.
People ain't like what I said, but the point, like the glorification of drug dealing is a lack of creative thinking. It's a lack of applying yourself.